I'm going to be making 1 loaf of sourdough bread using a starter that I've had since September 7th. It is active and it needs to be used. So I'm going to show you step by step what I do following a recipe that I made based off of recipes I got from the internet and what works for me. I have my iPad with my instructions that I wrote right there, and then these are the supplies I'm going to need right now to start the sourdough. I have a cup of water, I have a mixing bowl, I have my kitchen scale, flour, and my sourdough starter. I'm going to start out first by turning on my scale, zeroing it out, putting the mixing bowl on the scale, zeroing that out, and then I'm going to put 250 grams of sourdough starter into this bowl. I made a mistake. I'm not doing 250 because I'm only making 1 loaf. I'm doing 125 grams of sourdough starter. I'll show you me pouring it. So it's at 80, and then it gets like to 150 really fast. Look at that. Am I a magician? Wow. And then in my sourdough starter, I still have that much, and I'm also going to feed this and then put it back on the fridge where I keep it. Now I zero out my scale, and I'm going to pour in 450 grams of water to my starter. And this is my favorite part because you could see like this starter separating. All right, so we're at 394. See, like you have to go so slow. All right, so that's a little bit more than I wanted, but I'm gonna stop now. This is the controversial step that makes it technically not sourdough if you are loyal to the sourdough starter users. So I take half a teaspoon or half a tablespoon. I don't know what that says. TBSP. I think it's tablespoon. Okay, so yeah, half a tablespoon of the yeast, which is cheating. I'm going to dump it in. Now I'm going to mix it all together so it looks like almond milk. All right, now it kind of looks like this. You can see that the little bubbles of yeast have not dissolved, like the dry yeast that I dumped in. That's fine. I've always done it like this. Okay, I have my organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour in this container, and I'm going to zero out my scale. And then I'm going to put in 600 grams of the flour. Oops, I touched it. Okay. All right, this is what it looks like before I mix it. You see it's at 600 grams of flour, and now I'm going to mix it until it's all incorporated, and I will let you know if I have to add more flour. I also took it off of the scale before I started mixing because this part is when like the bowl's going to be moving around a lot, and I don't really need the scale just yet. I don't have a technique for mixing. I just like mix it. It's like just whatever. It's starting to come together. I'm going to keep mixing. Okay, I mixed it together. It's all like incorporated. I also scraped the edges of the bowl so that way most of the flour and dough, whatever is in the middle. I like using a silicone one of these because it like doesn't get messy. Okay, I just fed my starter. It's like bubbling. And then I'm going to cover this with a plate. And then I'm going to leave it on the counter and set a timer for 2 hours and then come back so I could add salt. Okay, it's been 2 hours, so now I'm going to take off the plate and I'm going to set it to the side. And this is what the dough looks like right now. There's bubbles and it looks like that. So now this step is pouring in 15 grams of sea salt. So I just put this little bowl, I zeroed out my scale. I'm using this sea salt. It's like coarse. This is the one I'm using. So I'm going to put it in and stop at 15. I'm going to stop filming because, actually, wait. All right, too much salt. Hold on. We're almost there. Yeah, I don't want to overdo it with the salt because you don't really need that much. Let's take out this black piece. Oh my God, how is it still 16? All right, so now I'm going to pour this into the dough and I'll knead it. All right, Michaela's going to help me film. So I'm dumping in the salt and then I'm just going to like pinch the dough and knead it in so that way all of the salt dissolves. And this part is like very sticky and messy. Okay, you can stop. You're going so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, I don't think so. I added in like 2 pinches of flour because it wasn't the consistency that I wanted it to be. But now that the salt is incorporated, I'm just going to like mix this a little bit more. And then I'm going to cover it with a plate and leave it on the counter for 4 hours. It's only been 2 hours, but I'm going to show you guys what the bread looks like, and I'm also going to be preheating my oven with the Dutch oven inside, and I'll show you guys. This looks like it's ready, so I'm just going to get the bowl rolling and like start making this bread. Preheating my oven with the Dutch oven inside until it gets to 450 degrees, then I'm going to put the bread in. Okay, so I wiped down my counter, made sure that it was clean, and then I put a little bit of flour down, and now I'm just emptying out the bowl so that way the dough is all on the counter. All right, so I'm gonna be making the dough into a rectangle. I'm also just gonna be like making sure that all of this flour is kind of incorporated, and I don't want it to stick to the counter, so I did have to put down more flour because if it sticks to the counter, like as you can see right here, it like gets really messy. So I'm gonna make it into like a roughly shaped rectangle. Maybe do this in speed motion. I don't. All right, so are we doing speed? Yeah, that's fine. Because this part kind of like takes a while. Okay, I just like kind of reshaped the loaf. I'm gonna sprinkle some flour on the top of it. Rub that in a little bit. This is gonna be like the part where you do like the scoring. So I have this like little scoring thing that like cuts it. And it depends like what type of loaf. Like sometimes it comes out a little bit different. Today it's like a little funny looking. So I'm just gonna like do a big cut. And you can see that like the pieces aren't really cutting. That's why I'm like going over it so many times because I do want it to have something. And then I'm gonna do like some little dashes in the middle. I was able to make like really pretty designs once, but only one time. All right, I'm gonna lift it in 1 second. I'm gonna put 1/3 cup of water into the pot on the side, not over the dough, but like on the side of the parchment paper. Okay, now I put the dough into the Dutch oven, and I'm gonna set the timer for a ½ hour. With my dirty fingers. Don't mind my dirty oven mitt. It's been touched by flour 1,000 times. I just took the loaf out of the oven. And that is what it looks like. So obviously this is really hot. The top of it looks a little crispy, but that's like the size that I wanted it to be. It did rise, which is good, so it's not gonna be like a short loaf. And I'm gonna let this sit for like 20 minutes and then I'll cut it. All right, and here is my beautiful sourdough loaf. I'm gonna be cutting it, and I hope that this was helpful.